What is global governance and what it does? Global governance is a continuous process of balancing different interests and initiating cooperative action between different countries. Governments in countries need cooperation and integration to have a just system for conflict resolution. However, there is no such thing as a world governance. Ang global governance ay nagsisilbing tagapamahala sa mga interes upang ito ay maging balance ayon sa kalidad ng anumang produkto, at ito rin ang nagpapanatili ng pagkakaisa ng mga bansa sa paraang patas na pagbigay ng interes sa import and export ng iba't ibang bansa. Set of norms, policies, laws, or regulations are needed to facilitate relations within countries and amongst countries, organization, and market. This is an example of global governance. Global governance is needed when a state of country do not have the capacity to solve problems on their own. There are cases whereby groups of countries have problems with each other. These countries cannot solve the problem by themselves. Global governance is also needed. Isa rin sa programa ng global governance ay ang pagpapatupad ng layunin, batas at utos na dapat sundin ng iba't ibang kalahok na bansa upang maging balanse at magkaroon ng pantay-pantay at patas na kahalagahan at pagtrato para sa iba't ibang bansa, lalo na sa mga produkto na kailangan ang angkatin sa ibang bansa. Ito din ang tumutulong para sa mga bansang may kinahaharap na krisis tulad ng pagbagsak ng ekonomiya, responde sa gera at iba pa.
Good day, I'm Angelica Danghel, and now let us proceed to the factors behind the emergence of global governance. First, permeability of nation states to vast flows of things. Fake news, cyberbullying, invasion of privacy, ito yung mga activities or gawain ng tao na mahirap makontrol dahil mabilis lumaganap kasi digital. Isang click mo lang, mabilis nang makita ng iba't ibang tao. Ito yung kadalasan na hindi na-address, ito yung problema na hindi agad nasusolusyonan ng isang bansa. Next, mass migration of people and the flow of criminal elements. Migration, example sa drugs. Minsan sinasama sa bagahe o sa pagkain para maipasok dito sa bansa. Yung mga babae, sinasakay nila sa barko para mailipat sa ibang bansa for sex trafficking. So, kinakailangan ito ng strong regulatory tulad nga doon sa customs. Dapat chine-check nila kung may papel ba yung mga dumadating na bagahe at dapat may cooperation rin yung ibang bansa. Next, internal events or problems which nation-states either instigate or are unable to control on their own. Isang magandang halimbawa nito ay ang extrajudicial killings. So dito, kailangan may control ka pa rin sa ginagawa. Alam mo pa rin kung paano iyon i-handle. Hindi pwede na basta masabi mo lang na gumagamit or nagda-drugs ang isang tao. Kailangan nasa due process pa rin yun. Next, the global problems that a single nation state is unable to tackle on their own. Ito yung inflation. Ito yung global problems na kumbaga hindi lang isang bansa yung naaapektuhan kundi ibang bansa rin. Naapektuhan yung economy natin, possible maapektuhan rin yung kita, mga produkto or services. Isa pang halimbawa nito ay ang COVID-19 pandemic.
Good day everyone, I'm Andrea Fajardo, and now let's proceed to our next topic. For our next topic, let's proceed to United Nations. So ito ay isang international na organization na itinatag noong 1945 pagkatapos ng World War II ng 51 bansa na nakatuon sa pagpapanatili ng pandaigdigang kapayapaan at seguridad or the security. Ito ay ang pagbuo ng pagkakaibigan ng relasyon sa pagitan ng mga bansa at pagtataguyod ng panlipunang pangunlad at mas mahusay na pamantayan ng pamumuhay at karapatang pantao. Next, we have the Security Council. Sila naman yung mga may pangunahing responsibility para sa pagpapanatili ng kapayapaan at security ng 15 na bansa tulad ng United States of America, Britain, Russia, China at France bilang permanenteng miyembro at 10 iba pang hindi permanenteng miyembro sa loob ng 2 taong termino, Economic at Social Council. Ito ang pangunahing katawan para sa coordination or pagsusuri ng patakaran, pag-uusap sa patakaran at mga rekomendasyon sa pang-ekonomiya, panlipunan, pangkapaligiran at iba pang mga espesyal na ahensya at organization tulad ng IMF, UNESCO, WHO at iba pa. Now let's proceed to Trusteeship Council. Sila naman yung mga nagbibigay ng international na pangangasiwa para sa 11 trust territories upang matiyak na ang mga sapat na hakbang ay ginawa upang ihanda ang mga teritoryo para sa sariling pamahalaan at pagtutulungan. Ngunit sinuspinde nito ang mga operasyon pagkatapos makomit ng huling teritoryo ng pinagkakatiwalaan ang kalayaan noong 1994. Meron tayong tinatawag na International Court of Justice. Ito ay tinutukoy bilang ang World Court or ang pangunahing hudisyal na katawan ng United Nations. Ito ay isa lamang sa mga pangunahing katawan ng United Nations na hindi matatagpuan sa New York or USA. Ang Peace Palace sa Hague, Netherlands ay nagbibigay ng lugar para sa mga bansa upang ayusin ang mga hindi pagkakaunawaan sa loob ng Korte ng Batas. Next, we have the Secretariat. Sila ang mga tumutulong sa iba pang mga katawan ng komite habang nagsasagawa ng iba't ibang gawain. Binubuo ito ng kalihim general at 10,000 international na mga kawani ng United Nations na nagsasagawa ng pang-araw-araw na gawain ng United Nations ayon sa pinag-uutos ng General Assembly. Ang kalihim general ay punong administration opisyal ng organization na hinirang ng General Assembly sa rekomendasyon ng Security Council.
Good day everyone, I am BJ Sanchez and I'm going to report the rules and function of the United Nations. First, we have maintain international peace and security. The United Nations came into being in 1945, following the devastation of the Second World War, with one central mission, the maintenance of the international peace and security. The United Nations does this by working prevent conflict, helping parties in conflict make peacemaking, and creating the conditions to allow peace to hold and flourish. These activities often overlap and should reinforce one another to be effective. Today's multidimensional peacemaking operations are called upon not only to maintain peace and security, but also to facilitate political processes, protect civilians, support constitutional processes and organizations of elections, protect and promote human rights, and assist in restoring the rule of law and extending legitimate state authority. Second, we have the protection of human rights. The promotion and protection of human rights is a key purpose and guiding principle of organization. In 1948, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights brought human rights into the realm of international law. Since then, the organization has diligently protected human rights through legal instruments and on-the-ground activities. The human rights constitute a set of rights and duties necessary for the protection of the human dignity, inherent to all human beings, irrespective of nationality, place of residence, sex, national or ethnic origin, color, religion, language, or any other status. Third, we have deliver humanitarian aid. One of the purposes of the United Nations is to achieve international cooperation in solving international problems of an economic, social, cultural, or humanitarian character. The organization relied upon the international community to coordinate humanitarian relief operations due to the natural and man-made disaster in areas beyond the relief capacity of national authorities alone. Also, humanitarian aid is the assistance that used to relieve suffering during the emergency situation. This is different from the development aid, which is assistance that goes to the addressing ongoing issues that contribute the human suffering. Fourth, we have the promote sustainable development. From the start in 1945, one of the main purposes of the United Nations was to achieve the international cooperation in solving international problems of an economic, social, cultural, or humanitarian character. Improving people's well-being contributes to one of the main focus of the United Nations. Sustainable development promotes prosperity and economic opportunity, greater social well-being, and protection of the environment. A development model that is sustainable for this and future generations offer the best path forward for reducing poverty and improving the lives of the people everywhere. Development that meets the needs of the present without compromising the ability of the future generations to meet their own needs. Fifth, we have the uphold international law. The United Nations Charter, in its preamble, set an objective to establish conditions under which justice and respect for the obligations arising from treaties and other sources of international law can be maintained. Ever since, the development of the respect for international law has been a key part of work of the organizations. This work is carried out in many ways, by courts, tribunals, multilateral treaties, and by the Security Council, which can approve peacekeeping missions, impose sanctions, or authorize the use of force when there is a threat to international peace and security. Since 1945, the United Nations has been a champion of the following global concerns: preventing and managing conflicts, regulating armaments, championing human rights and international humanitarian law, liberating the colonized, providing economic and technical aid in newly liberated countries, empowering women, educating children, feeding the hungry, housing the refugees, coordinating disaster relief and assistance.
Challenges of global governance in the 21st century. First, indistinct and disposed authority. Second, vast disparities in power and influence among state and non-state actors. Third, lack of resources of the UN and other actors. Third, incoherent policies of global governance actors. And lastly, decentralized and informal self-regulatory groups. First is nationalistic interests. Every leader have a different views or opinions when it comes to the interests of their own country. It is needed to be discussed with other leaders for them to understand what is needed to be done or to avoid threat, and misunderstanding between the nations. Second is lack of consensus or general agreement. So, ang best example dito is nuclear energy policies. Di ba sa ganyan is may mga bagay na kulang or di na pagkakasunduan between nations because it can affect in the globalization. Because nuclear power results is no direct emissions. Some for climate change or mitigation. Nuclear power plant is also promoted as technology with low emission of nitrogen and oxides. Even in the absence of climate policies, the Nuclear Energy or the Red Book expects worldwide nuclear capacity. Third is indistinct disposed authority. When someone fails to do actions or to take a responsibility to the situation, it is not clear kung ano yung ginawang naging ugat or kung sino ang dapat sisihin. That is why is the law states that ito yung sitwasyon na kailangan mong i-evade or international laws na walang kasama na malaking kaparusahan. Lastly is incoherent policies or emerging trends. We are very surprised by the speed of the technology. Technology changes, that is why it gave a hard time to the global governance to adopt or catch the issues. Ang challenge dito is kung paano mo i-mainline ang free flow ng mga informasyon kasabay ng pagkakaroon ng magandang tamang batas para i-control ang cyber aggression sa ating mundo or yung aggression about worldwide.
Good day, I am Marvin Senius and I am the next reporter, and I will going to discuss the globalization and the state. The relevance of the state amid globalization. State legitimacy is not based on how it can handle globalization. It is based on how effective it can utilize its public goods rather than the other actors in the process of globalization. There are few cases only where the other actors are more effective and competent in addressing specific issues than the state. Until or unless various actors can perform better services than what the state does now on a macro scale, then the state will continue to be major force in globalization. The role of the nation-state in the global world is largely a regulatory one as the chief factor in global interdependence, while the domestic role of the nation-state remains largely uncharged. States that were previously isolated are now forced to engage with one another to set international commerce policies. So now let's move on to the difference between nation and state. The state is the distinctive political community with its own government with assert sovereignty over its land and people. The state is a territory considered as an organized political community under one government. A state has four main elements: territory, population, government, and sovereignty. A state also has fixed geographical boundaries. It is also not dependent on subordinate to any other state. It has an independent governance system. A nation is a large group of people who inhabit a specific territory and are connected by history, culture, or another commonality, and a nation formed by factors like common race, common language, common culture, common history, common territory, etc. But none of these are absolutely essential. For example, a nation can survive without a territory, but love for a common territory may unite the nation. The elements that result in a nation are not always constant. Nation is always the result of evolution. It is also possible for two or more nations to exist within a single state. Nation is not a legal entity. It is a strong bond between people and common elements like ethnicity, language, and descent that keeps the nation together. While the nation-state is a sovereign institution that governs individuals sharing a collective history and culture without a bounded territory. The state is considered as the representative of the people, and the people are the source of the state legitimacy and sovereignty. A nation-state is a political unit where the state and nation are congruent. It is a more precise concept than country. country, since a country does not need to have a predominant ethnic group. A state is an independent political entity with clear geographic boundaries. Nation is a large body of the people united by common origin, history, culture, ethnicity, or language. The main difference between state and nation is that the state is a political and legal entity, whereas nation is a socio-cultural entity.